From the House of Songo, this is Gay Topics, the only gay source for hot topics and gay news. Good afternoon. I don't know what day it is, but it's Monday. It's Gay Topics All Day Monday. I've been going through a lot of emotions and revealing a lot, including my new name. My new name is my actual name. So, I'm your host, Kenny Cruz. This is Gay Topics. I'm the only host to bring you the latest LGBTQ headlines and breaking news. Thank you for watching. Thank you for viewing. Thank you for following. Thank you for sharing. And most of all, thank you for commenting. Again, as I stated, there have been several changes to my platform and idea as to how I want to produce my show. It is me by myself. I don't have anyone here. It's just me and the camera. Then the pandemic happened, and I realized that there's no way I can present you gay topics as I want to because I don't have the help or assistance. I've shown many videos of me throughout the pandemic and recent days and why I've been hesitant to go live. It's hard to focus on camera when there's so many mixed emotions inside and inside your head. More importantly, the anxiety and stress is so overwhelming, your thoughts are not processed correctly. And they say the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. I find that conflicting because if you truly are passionate about something and want to be successful, you would repeat the same thing over and over again. Not to mention you will gain more knowledge and more skills in repeating the same thing over and over and over again. It is also how we all, everyday Americans and citizens, live in this world and how we make a living. After all, during the pandemic, we found out which workers were actually essential and the ones that we really did need. So these people go to school for years, even sometimes they have residents like doctors and, internships, repeating the same things over and over and over again. Of course you would expect a different outcome because as an intern, if you're repeating the same thing over and over and over again, you expect to graduate. So that is a different outcome. Me serving in the war, I continue to battle and fight, knowing that the outcome would be different. Or it would be a different result than what it is now. Marching for a lot of, organizations and protests for police brutality and civil rights. We repeat the same patterns of behavior over and over and over again and expect a different result. That is why we do it. The conflict comes when you're expecting a different result, but the same thing keeps happening. So, what is the actual definition of insanity? Is it the same thing, repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result? Or doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting the same result? Makes you think, doesn't it? I I really can't say I'm insane. I'm not insane because I watch television, and I know what the definition of insanity is when I see it, uh, you know, um, or what evil is when I see it. I am not an evil person. I don't have any evil habits. I'm not evil toward other people, although other people are evil toward me. That's the point I'm getting at. Everything that I do in life, that we all do, it seems to be getting a different result from the people that I explain or display the affection toward. I'm constantly finding myself begging for acceptance and someone to just listen. But the problem is that that is becoming, I think, an issue as well because I'm repeating the same story over and over and over and over and over again to all these different people, expecting them to help. But the solution to me is I need a dog or I need a family to love me, someone to love me, some type of emotional companionship, and just someone to be here. You know, being alone is they just recently tried to they're having laws made to abolish solitary confinement because they find that solitary confinement is doing more damage than it's actually supposed to help. And to me, as I said in previous videos, as I've looked out through in my entire life, I've always been stuck inside a room by myself. No one there, no one around. And then when people do come around, I'm ignored. I'm brushed off. No one listens. No one cares that I'm even there. Um, as if I'm invisible. You know, I'm off script, and this is why I said that this version of Gay Topics is more personal, and I feel this is very beneficial to my well-being by being personal with you. And I've had a very hard life, and going forward, I will continue to tell you stories about my life because, again, I've pitched my idea to have it on audiobook and paperback. I've also pitched to several different production companies, um, and no one seems to want to pick it up, which kind of reminds me of how I was when I was a child and no one wanted to adopt me, or my mother didn't want to have me. Let's talk about my mother for a brief time that I actually knew her. My mother cheated on her husband, which was my father. Um, and he wasn't my biological father because she had gotten pregnant and had twins. And we didn't look like my other two brothers. So my father knew instantly. But he was a man, and he stayed with her even though he knew that she cheated and got pregnant with someone else. And he raised me up until I was 7. And when I was 7, they got divorced because she had another baby with another man. And he left. And every time my mother looked at me, I felt that she didn't want me, or she put me to the side because she was always concerned with my other brothers, and because it was three of us now, four, and my sister, my twin sister. She got so much attention because she was the only girl out of five, and everyone else got attention. I can remember when I was growing up in school. I was probably about 7 or 8, and they had just gotten divorced, and she found this man on the bus. And the very first day that she met him, he moved in, and my whole world changed after that. And I used to get beat so hard. I was starved. There were times I was beaten so hard I blacked out and fell unconscious. There were times that I was beat so hard bones were broken. My mother did this to me purposely. In fact, the man she now met would become my stepfather and the man who molested me for years. She caught us many times, and he has never been arrested. I also realized that I was the neglected one because I was always the last to eat, and there was never any enough food to eat. And I found myself wandering the streets looking for food that was left over in garbage cans and begging neighbors for food. The dog used to get more food than I did. This is very hard because she hated me. And I don't know why. I don't know why. Everyone hated me. So I'm like 7 or 8, and he moves in. And as soon as he moves in, anger and fighting and, all this negative attention happened. Like the household was in chaos every single day. And it was like that for years. I'm talking more than 10. This is like years. And it became normal. My stepfather, of course, being the way she found him because he was sleeping on the bus, was homeless and a crackhead, and she would supply him with the money to provide him for his drugs and his habit, while she had a habit of her own, addicted to painkillers. No, I didn't know this because I'm only 8 years old. But as I grew older, I knew certain things that had happened. She did it and placed blame on me to get me in trouble, to make me look guilty or the bad one. Any way she could do to try to do that will make authorities or anyone else get rid of me. So her main focus was to eliminate me and get rid of me. So I was 7, 8 years old, and we were going to school, and I normally walked to school by myself or with another brother, and this time it was the entire family. The entire family. And I thought that was very odd. But we were still walking home from school. My mother was never home when I came home from school, so I thought again, why was she there with the entire family, to pick us up? So We're crossing the street holding hands. There's three and two of us on the other side, and we're all holding hands. And we never held hands. In fact, to this day, I haven't held any of my family's hands. We were all holding hands, and I remember crossing the street, but being still in the middle of the street because there's so many of us, and we were all filing onto the sidewalk, and I was the last one, and a car immediately ran and hit me. It was a station wagon, and there was a nurse inside, and she hit me, and when she hit me, I ran over the first tire and was stuck underneath the second tire. And she had to move the car back, and then they pulled me out from underneath the car because my mother screamed and all this stuff, and there was all this energy going on, and the neighbors were coming out to help, and they pulled me onto the sidewalk where the grass is, and I'm laying on the grass, and this is what I'm told. I don't remember this, but this is what I'm told. But as an adult man, I see how it's much different than what I was told. So they take me out and put me on the side of on the sidewalk, and the woman comes out, and people are thanking her for being a nurse because she's in her uniform, and she looks at me and the other neighbors and goes back into her station wagon and drive down the street. She was late for work at a nursing facility that was down the street from where she lived. The very same nursing facility that my mother worked at. My mother was an RN, and I truly believe my mother tried to have me killed. Because when she received the settlement, she gave a portion of that money to the nurse, and because she was obviously arrested for leaving the scene of an accident and charged. So she gave that money to help pay the bail for the woman to get out of jail. And my mother took a portion of it and left me a meager income, probably about a third of it. She told me the reason why I got so low was because the lawyer took most of the money and the settlement. I found that very strange as well, but still, this is the story that I was told. But as an adult man, I look at it and see that my mother tried to have me killed for my life insurance, and she was friends with the nurse. And once, as things transpire in life, things happen, and I remember these things, but as I'm putting these things that I'm remembering back together, they all make sense. My mother was later fired from that position, and she was saying because they didn't like her uniform, and she would wear one of those single white uniforms that were attached, and squeezed in the middle, and it was a dress. I don't know, and she had long blonde hair, and I don't know what they thought was inappropriate about it, but they thought it was inappropriate, so they fired her. But that was what I was told. Again, she was fired because they caught on to what they did in the accident, and the woman obviously was fired after they pressed charges against her for leaving the scene of an accident, but the woman was free and didn't serve any jail time, to my knowledge. So my mother put a hit on me. There's another time, she said I was in maybe the 4th grade, so I was probably like 6 or 7, that when I came home from school, we were learning about fires and firefighters and what they do and how fires are set. And all of a sudden, the refrigerator, is on fire and the house is on fire. It was a 3 alarm fire, and my mother's in the corner screaming and everything like that. And who does she blame it on? Me. I don't. I look at it now like, if I'm playing with matches, how can a single match set a refrigerator on fire? That is forensically impossible. Moreover, if I'm the kid, I'm probably just going to flick it like that. And if you flick it like that, more than likely the flame is going to go out. So I don't understand how that can even be considered why I did it. That's impossible. She set the house on fire because she was having a nervous breakdown and didn't want to be taken away into the hospital. So her nervous breakdown was eliminated once the house was on fire and everything was going crazy, because now they allowed her to be in this state of mind, giving her the medication to keep her calm and just providing more of the medication that she needed, that she wanted, and her plan didn't work. I mean, I was too young to be arrested, but I was still punished for what happened because everyone put the blame on me. So I look back at it now and really see that it was her who did it. She was the one who set it on fire because she needed a reason to blame me and get rid of me. I would go to school, and every time I would go to school, I was constantly bullied, harassed, jumped, called every derogatory name you can think of because I was gay and white. I used to always try to clarify to them that I was not white. I'm actually Puerto Rican, but because I lived in a predominantly 90% black community, low income community, I was white, and people picked on me, and I was always being jumped, and I was always being attacked, and I was running for my life, and deans holding me in their office for protection, and telling me to stay in the office. It's just, oh, I hated going to school. And what I just explained to you is every right that a kid would not want to go to school. So I would stay home, and I would hide under the bed. And I would hide under the bed, and she would find me before she went to work because she worked the 7 to 3 shift. But again, she was never home at 3 o'clock. And she was, she caught me, and she called the truant police because at this time of years, it was in the 90s, 80s, early 90s, I was arrested and I was put in this detention center that was far worse than a jail, but with kids. And these were kids that clearly needed to be in a place where they were actually one-on-one with someone or in a smaller group than the large cafeteria they kept us in. And we were from all different parts of the city, and usually they were ones that committed some type of crime, like broken into the school, or not going to school, or instead of being at school they were robbing somebody or beating up somebody in school, and they were put in this facility, and the ongoing hate and harassment kept continuing over and over again. My mother didn't want me to be around, and so after all these attempts of trying to get rid of me, they've failed. So I was kept inside a room. I was kept inside a room. I never had any friends or was allowed to go outside. And I was kept inside a room. And eventually, as I grew up, you know, I can remember reaching my hand out to say hi to people through the window guards, and speaking to them through the window guards. But I was stuck inside that room all day long. But to me, that was my safe space, and I had, I hated being there by myself, but I had my dog King with me, and it was better than being in truant or, you know, in a group home, because that's eventually what happened. As my stepfather continued to abuse me, and my mother actually caught us, and I thought something would happen. She allowed him to stay there and get high and do his thing, and nothing happened. I've told neighbors through the window, what was going on, and no one listened. Where we lived between the school and the police station, and I was truant, and she called him, and instead of going with the truant officers, I asked them if I can actually go with the NYPD, and I knew some of the officers, through waving, because even officers came to the window. Everyone came to the window, but I was still stuck inside that room. So when I went to NYPD, I finally revealed what happened, and he wasn't arrested. ACS was called, and ACS put me in a group home. And now, instead of being in this big cafeteria, I was now in this smaller type cafeteria setting with people who committed crimes. And I was still the only white one. And gay. I had so many black eyes and busted lips. And I went from one group home because it would happen in one group home, and then I would have to go to another one, and then the same thing happened, and the same thing happening. So the court system put me back home, and once I returned home, why was he still there? Doing the same thing. The abuse did stop, but there was always this anger and hostility toward him, and he got what he got away with, and how he continued to live his life getting high. And my mother had me arrested for truancy over 200 times. 200 times. And she never had anyone else in my family arrested for truancy. I'm the only one who graduated high school in my entire family. I don't know about my recent nieces or nephews or cousins because they're, Generation Z, or Y, whatever the new generation is. Millennials. They don't know I exist. My siblings have not told them about me. So they don't even know they have an uncle. And if they do, they were probably fed information that made them hate me and despise me and not want to get to know me. That's what happened with my mom. So once I was, there was a time during the blizzard of 1996. I was a senior in high school. I had to work because my mother wouldn't pay for anything. As like your senior dues and your yearbook and stuff, she wouldn't pay for that, or for me to go to the prom. I had to do that on my own, and this is so hard, but I have to do this. I paid for my senior trip, and we went skiing, and we were supposed to be gone the whole weekend. And it took us an hour to get there, but because of the blizzard, we had to leave early. So I left a message with my mother and the teachers and stuff like that. Left a message for my mother that we will be leaving early and that there was a blizzard coming. We got back to that school 10.5 hours later. It was a long ride. And it was so hot. But it's a year that I never forget because it's a part of my life as these stories that I'm telling you. So we get back to the school, and it was Beach Channel High School in Far Rockaway, Queens. Actually, Rockaway Park. It splits, so it's Rockaway Park on 100th Street and Beach Channel Drive, and there used to be this rumor. There used to be this rumor that it was sinking because it's on the actual ocean, you know, as like a what do you call it? Peninsula, or part of the separation of the peninsula itself, because Far Rockaway was a peninsula. But people would say it was sinking, and that the basement used to be the first floor. Something like that. The first floor was in the basement. That was a myth that went on. But we get back to the school, and it's a designated shelter, and everybody's chaotic. And remember, this is before cell phones and computers, so there's only two payphones and the pay the school phones. So the teacher had access to that and were allowing students to phone home. And I remember calling my mom, and the answering machine picked up. Normally, when you had an answering machine, you can actually hear the person that's leaving the message and pick up as they're leaving the message, in the middle of them leaving the message. So I knew someone would heard me because it went doot 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 boo. Mom, I'm sick. I'm stuck at the school. Can you come get me? There's a blizzard outside. I'm alone. I don't have I can't get home. Can you come get me? Doot 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 boo. My mother heard me and hung up the phone so the message would stop. Now, I thought it was the payphone that I was using, so I asked to use one of the school phones, and the same thing. Mom, I'm stuck. Can you come get me? There's a blizzard outside. We came home early and I can't get home. Doot, 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 boo. My mother picked up the phone and hung up on me. The school was on 100th Street and Beach Channel Drive. I lived on 54th Street and Beach Channel Drive. I walked in snow that was up to here, and most of it with my luggage, and I didn't want to stay in that school. I didn't. I wanted to be in my bed. And I walked through all that snow by myself. Nobody stopped to pick me up because I was white. No one stopped. The very few people that I did see driving by, no one offered me at school either, a ride home. So I walked home. And I got home about maybe 4, 3, 4 in the morning. And they were sleeping. But when I got home, I turned on the light and threw my luggage on the ground. And what the fuck are you doing? Do you realize what time it is? Do you realize I was just fucking stuck and you couldn't come pick me up? Why would you do something like that? She had the gall to say that there was too much snow on her car and she didn't want to move her car. Well, you can't see your car now. And, well, now you're home, it's okay, so go to bed. That's all that was said about that. She left me stranded. I had no place to go, and you were in bed, underneath your blankets, warm and cozy, while I suffer hypothermia in the freezing cold, carrying 2 luggages. She tried the next day for me to help her shovel the snow, but I refused. Because she couldn't see her car, and I'm very grateful for that, because now she was being punished for what she had done to me. So once the sexual abuse with my stepfather had stopped, an ongoing sexual abuse would occur. When I went to, because I told you I had to pay for my senior year in my senior college and my senior prom. That's another thing. She only had to pay $500 for me to take 7 college classes while in high school. $500. She didn't do that. So I did. And I did that by working at McDonald's. And the school was so huge. It was like a college campus. It looked like a college campus. And it was on the beach, and people back in the day used to drive to school, but because it was now so poor and, ghetto, we took the bus and we would go to the school, the MTA bus, and they would make so much noise. I hated those bus rides. Sometimes I would wait till after the big crowds had left to take the bus, or even walk home again myself, But the school was huge, and right next to it was its McDonald's, its own McDonald's. So that McDonald's would never go out of business. Anyway, I worked there, and they were shifting managers and changing them over. So there was a high rate of employers, and it was kind of concerning. But one particular guy, he was Ecuadorian, I'm going to say, maybe about 5'10", brown eyes, a mustache, very thin mustache, and big pink lips with jet black curly hair that was shoulder length. He was average build, I would say. I can't remember his exact build because it was we were always, wearing our uniform, but I I was in the freezer getting some meat or hash browns or something, or buns or something, and as I'm in the freezer, he grabs my cock and he bends down to his knees and starts to unzip me as he turns me over to face him. And he starts sucking my dick. I'm used to that before because I was molested and my stepfather did it. And I'm now 15, 16 years old. So perhaps maybe this is me exploring my sexuality of something that I've only known and liked. Um, I push him up and we start kissing, and it was very passionate, and he continued to grab my dick. I grabbed his dick, and it was very passionate. I grabbed his buttocks and held him tight, and he threw me against the wall and shoved his tongue down my throat, and it was very aggressively passionate, but passionate in a way that was unlike the sexual abuse from my stepfather where it was forced. It was just aggressively passionate. And, like I kissed him, but I didn't kiss my stepfather. I kissed him and hugged him and touched him. I didn't do that with my stepfather. My stepfather just did it, you know. So I remember a time, it was late at work and I was cleaning up the dining room. Like if you work in any restaurant, when the store closes, then you have to clean up. And sometimes that could take some time, and all the other employees had gone and I'm still there, because we're holding conversations. We know each other and we like each other, and we talk to each other all the time and are excited to see each other. And he takes me in the dining room and puts me on a table and pulls down my pants and has sex with me right there in front of these like floor to ceiling windows where traffic was going by, because there was a Cross Bay Boulevard right there, and you can see traffic, but no one stopped. No one stopped. There was another time in the freezer we had sex, and no one stopped or came in, because he would now lock it from the inside of the freezer. So he had the time, but it was also very cold. He put me, because of that, because it was getting very cold, he put me stationed at the drive-through where you take the orders and then they would drive on to get the actual order. So I was in this little booth, with a cash register and supplies that are needed, like ketchup and things like that, So I was stuck in this little square booth that was next to the freezer, and that is another place where we started to have sex, on the countertop in the booth, and, through the drive-through window, and it would go on and on, and it went on and on and on. And now here I am, 18 years old, and it's still going on. And there was another time, too, that I remember. He was in Far Rockaway. There's houses there now, but before it was nothing but brush and weeds and trash and sand and nothing. It was just miles and miles of empty land. And you would variously see parked cars out there because you knew they were doing something, or people in the bushes, or, on the boardwalk. It was just very seedy and very dark and secluded. So whenever you saw something out there, it was probably they were doing something suspicious. And so one night, Uncle Juan, his name is, Uncle Juan took me down there and we parked a car and he pulled my seat back and he proceeded to have sexual encounter with me. In the middle of it, we're disturbed. And as we're getting on and kissing and stuff like that, and he's on top of me, we see lights. So he goes to the driver's side and starts adjusting himself and fixing his clothes and things like that. And then something taps on his, window side, as did mine, as I'm fixing and adjusting my clothes. It was too fast for me to actually, button my pants, so they were unbuttoned and clearly visible. But I pulled my shirt down, and you can still see it if you really paid attention, but they were still clothed up, and pulled up. So when I heard the tap, I rolled down the window, and he asked me, "What am I doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just here with my uncle. We're looking at the stars. That's all." And that's what my uncle proceeded to tell him, that we were doing something for science and for school, and he was showing me the lights and things like that. Mind you, the windows were all fogged up, so we really couldn't see anything. More so, if we really wanted to see anything, we should be outside, not inside the car. And the police officer uses his flashlight and starts looking around and stuff like that. But what really struck me as odd was, here is a grown-ass man with no resemblance to me, but other than me saying he's my uncle, in a car all alone on a beach that is known for seedy behavior or lewd activities. And the police officer said, "Okay, you need to get out of here, so you be safe and go home." And that's what he did. He got away with it. He's never been arrested for it. There was another time my mother and stepfather were fighting. That's something I don't understand. Why do they continue to fight, and she allow this behavior to happen on a continued basis? Because she herself was addicted to pain medication. She'll admit to you that she's never had a drink in her life, but she's been high too. So you have two conflicting highs. One is medicated and probably prescribed, most likely prescribed, and another is street level and a completely different high, and reaction to it. So they bumped heads all the time and were fighting over and over and over and over. It just was. We lived in the projects, and the walls were so thick that you could literally scream or kill somebody, and nobody will ever know. Nobody will ever know. And so they would fight all the time. All the time. And this one time, I was probably about 16, maybe 17, and they were fighting, and I got fed up with it. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm trying to study for school, I'm in my room quiet. Why are you making all this noise, And she caused those fights and would say he was the aggressor. And he was the one, or at least that's what she told us, that he was the aggressor and he was the bad one. But I think he did drugs to rid himself of the abuse my mother was giving him. It was hard to be around her. People hated her too for what she done to me. People didn't want to speak to her. People knew everything, but no one ever accepted or loved me. And that's what hurts. Mental state all come like whenever you see a psychologist or a therapist, they always want you to go back. You go back to the history of what you've been through in life. My history, honestly, has been of one of a serial killer. I'm very grateful I have not turned out to be someone like that. I can kill so many people, but do you want to? No. I want to hug. I want to kiss. I want to go on a date. I want to go to the park. I want to love. I want to marry. I want to go to graduations and weddings. My wedding. I want to go to the bar and have a drink. I used to do that all the time, and I would be so sexy. I would like literally change outfits so people could notice me, and that's what famous people do. They go to the club and they change outfits. They go in one and come out with another, and that's what I did. And not one person talked to me. And if they did, they were all drunk and drooling and just nasty. Like, if I had a security guard, you wouldn't be on me like that. It's just... People avoid me like I'm some alien. And why? And then they make it seem like I'm the crazy one and I need help. Well, here's something that I can share with you. When I was growing up, people were telling me that they don't like my personality, they don't like the way I'm treating things or my behavior is, and I'm not that in a mental state of mind, and I really need medication. And if I didn't take the medication, they wouldn't talk to me anymore because they were fed up and didn't want to be bothered with me. So, including this guy that I was seeing, and I did, and it completely changed who I was. I'm not going to lie to you. I was a different person. I was a completely different person. I feel like right now, when Bill Clinton passed away, I'm a different person. I'm not the same person anymore. These life-altering things are revelations and reflections of the person you are looking at. I've had a hard life, a very hard life. I'm alone, and sometimes all I really do want is a hug. But I can't hug because it's the coronavirus. Or I can't hug somebody who actually knows me, or knows anything about me. How many of you know what my favorite color is? What do I like most about New York City? Why do I live in New York City? What's my favorite movie? What do I like to do for fun? You see, these normal questions that people actually know, no one knows about me. People don't know anything about me or don't know me at all, and it's very disturbing. Because here it is that I'm trying my best and putting myself out there on social media, and I'm being reported. I I'm so I can't use that to meet people. I go on date profiles, and all I receive is negative attention from the porn industry and the people who I work with in the porn industry, and fans who disagree with people who work in the porn industry. And it's just been all this negative energy my entire life. When is it going to stop? When is it going to stop? I have nothing else I can do but sit here and talk to the camera. There was a time when I was, since we're talking about my mother, there was a time when I was like 10, 9, and I went outside. The reason why I was able to actually get food from the dog was because the dog trusted me. And I would steal food from him to eat because the food on the dog's food was more than what I was actually getting. So I constantly fought him to eat the meat off the bone. And moreover, he slept in my bed. And I slept in one of those fold-away beds. So he slept in a hole, and I slept on the other side, curled up in a ball. And I was the only one that he fed, was there for him through everything. And we lived by the school, as I said, and in the school there's a little yard area, and we're playing in a grassy area. But I noticed a dumpster is there, and the dumpster was there because they were doing construction on the school. And I immediately looked inside and saw that it was empty. It appeared to be relatively empty to me. Which was the reason why I thought to do this. Just like with King and BillClinton, I have a stick, and I throw the stick, and they come back with the stick or the ball, and they don't release it. King was the same way. It's like, let it go. But finally grab it off, and I throw it, and I threw myself in a dumpster. But as I threw myself in the dumpster, I saw that there were a bunch of bricks there. I was like, oh shit. So I put my hand out to stop myself from falling. And as I put my hand out, I got cut. I ran home, the dog barking like crazy, like, what's going on? And he's following me, and there's blood pouring out of me. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I need to go to the hospital. I need to go to the hospital. I go home, and my mother's not in the bathroom. So I'm knocking on the door, but while I'm knocking on the door, there's a hall closet. Hall closet, in the bathroom closet, I should say. But it's in the hall. There were all these towels, so I wrapped one towel up, and it got soaked in blood. As I'm communicating with my mother, and grab another towel in, and I wrap it up, and it's getting soaked in blood. And she adamantly refused to open the fucking door. Like, what the hell? Ma, I think I need to go to the hospital. You're a nurse. You need to look at this. Like, what the fuck are you not opening the door for? And I just keep banging and banging and banging. And she's telling me to leave her alone. She's late for work. And she wouldn't open the door. And then when she finally opened the door, I was now on the third towel. And I'm like, I need to go to the hospital. She looked at it and just put water on it. So that's what I did. And it was still bleeding. And it was still bleeding profusely. So I went upstairs to a neighbor. And that very neighbor ended up becoming one of my foster mothers. As I went through ACS, going from group home to group home to group home. She took me to the hospital, and I needed 5 stitches. About 5, it's right there. There was another time my brother threw a wagon, one of those red wagons from the 1950s or whatever, because this was in the 1980s. He threw a red wagon at me, and it didn't have its wheels on it, so he was able to actually pick it up and throw it at me, and it cut my eye right here, and blood is pouring out of my eye, and I thought I lost my eye, and my mother refused to take me to the hospital. She refused to take me to the hospital. I lie there pouring with blood from my head. I went to my neighbor again, and my neighbor took me to the hospital. This is the reason why she didn't get along with my neighbors, because she allowed this to happen to me. But then they all knew that what was happening to me was wrong, but you didn't help. Now, as I said, my neighbor became my foster mother, but it had to be a secret. So whenever I was coming and going, I had to be very quiet, because if the landlord found out and knew that I was my mother's son, my foster mother would be evicted. That's the kind of reputation my mom had. And one day she did find out, and I had to go. And they put me back home in the same environment that I'm trying to avoid, and know that it's not the right environment for me to be in, which is why you stepped in to help. I didn't know why my foster mother didn't keep me. But I had to move back home, and that's when I started my relationship with Uncle Juan. But I did graduate high school. I was left back because I didn't go to school. But when I did go to school, and actually continue to go to school, because they put me in this program called the Academy of Finance. And the Academy of Finance was more about numbers and math and accounting and stuff like that. But I had to get in that program to get out of special ed. And I didn't need to be in special ed because there was nothing special about me. So they put me in the Academy of Finance. And once I was in the Academy of Finance, I was able to actually go to classes with the people who actually went to school, like the valedictorian, and the football player. Like, I was able to actually engage myself in the people who actually went to the school, instead of the crowd that was in special ed, or the crowd that I was beating me up or bullying me. And those teachers protected me. They really did. And I was in AP history and AP Scientology, and not Scientology, physiology, and chemistry. I was in really advanced classes, and I had to take my Regents diploma and my high school diploma, and I was in student government. I won nicest eyes in the yearbook. I went to the senior prom and the junior prom and the senior trip and the senior trip after that. I was very active with my class because, again, it was with the people who actually were going to school, and I was happy, and they didn't care about me. It was just about me going to school so I can be old enough to get out of that environment at home. Uncle Juan eventually, as I said, when he came, they were shifting managers, and the employee turnover was really ridiculous. He stayed, but as he continued to stay and we continued to involve in these sexual relations, people starting to bully me at work, and they were harassing me. And for them to stop, he had to say he was my uncle. And so once he did that, then it was even more expressive, and the affection was even more visible, you know. And once he had to leave, and once he left, I felt heartbroken because he was the only one who actually was giving me attention that I was actually enjoying, and I liked going to work. And I was lonely again, where I had to be stuck inside a room with a dysfunctional family. So when I focused on graduating and joining the military, because there was a recruiter that kept showing up, and I had nobody else to talk to, and I really needed to get out of, that environment. So I signed up and became a private in the military, the U.S. Army. Why did I do that? Why? That was the most horrific day and experience I've ever endured. But I look at it now, and what I've experienced now, it really is nothing compared to what has happened to me throughout my life. And it's really sad. With basic training, I cried every day. They made us walk under wire. They spit on us. They pushed us. They made us do push-ups. They made us do the things that my stepfather was doing to me by making me stand there in this one position. They call it attention, but I felt it was somewhat the same thing, where you would stand in one position all day long. It was kind of the same pattern, so I'm thinking perhaps this is the right way, or this is how it's supposed to be. And I continue on, and I graduate, and I become a sergeant, and I go to Afghanistan, and I do another deployment in Iraq, and I come home, and when I came home, there was no home to go to. I knocked on the door because I was really mad that nobody saw me in baggage claim, because JFK Airport is literally right next to Far Rockaway. You could have at least met me in a train station. I was 18 when I left, and now I'm 28. Everything's changed. It's still ghetto, and in fact, I ended up bumping into a girl that I went to high school with that was so beautiful, and everybody wanted to date her and know what her secret was and wanted to be around her. She was one of those popular girls, and here it is that her hair was all bushled up and dirty, and she was filthy, and she was wearing raggedy clothes and smoking a cigarette and asking me for a quarter. And I look and I'm like, you don't know who I am? She said, I don't care who you are, just give me a quarter. And a quarter? I was horrified, and I was even more horrified for what was about to happen to me. Because when I knocked on my door, different people were living there. And I was, what? Do I have the wrong floor? Like, what's going on? Is this the right apartment? And they informed me that my family had passed away. My mother and my father, my grandmother, my grandfather, my uncle, and my sister all passed away. Where did they go? Where are they? So the only ones left were my brothers. And this was now Facebook, and I thought everything was okay, and I reach out to them, and I find out they block me. And from what I'm being told from other people was that they didn't like that I was gay. And To this day now, I look at it, even now that gay marriage is legal, like, why were you hating on me? Why do you continue to hate on me? So I had no family. The only family I had was taking the suggestion of a superior officer in the United States Army and adopting a dog. And I adopted Bill Clinton, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life because he essentially became my family. He was my only family. So you have to understand, now I'm stuck inside the military and I come out and I'm homeless. What am I to do? Where am I to go? So I ride the trains all night long. And I have sex with multiple people just to spend the night on their bed. Sometimes they give me breakfast, and this happened for a couple years while I lived in that shelter. Because you couldn't eat that shelter food. It was crap. It was like, worse than a TV dinner. It was horrible. In fact, I had a girlfriend while I was in the shelter because I was constantly being beaten and bullied that I needed to prove to them that I was straight and had a girlfriend. So I had a girlfriend. And yeah, we had sex, but when we had sex, I pretended that she was a man. And I think she knew that, but I was her boyfriend for a very long time because her mother had food. Her mother had food, so I needed to be her boyfriend to eat. And her mother even caught on to it, like, oh, he's only here to eat. Something's going on. And eventually we had to stop dating, but then the bullying started again, and my whole life has been people attacking me and me having to prove who I am. Is there a problem with who I am? I was so sexy. I was so sexy. I did grace the, calendars and photo shoots and cover model and trophy boy. I was that person, and not one person actually knew me. All those fans and followers and people didn't actually know me. So when I was blocked off of Facebook, I lost communication with the only world that I knew. And I couldn't keep my other social media because I was under my porn star name, and that's not who I am anymore. In fact, this whole conversation has been about me changing my name. I am now your host, Kenny Cruz, and this is my story. My story is provocative and may be disturbing to many, but this is what happened to me. This is who I am. And as I continue telling these stories, you're gonna see in my fucking face how destroyed and damaged I am. And yet, nobody has done a single thing to help me. These videos will surface as recordings for that and my life. Because when they lift up this computer, they're gonna see these videos. Because when you die in New York City, they'll do anything to resell their apartment. So I know they're going to see this. And possibly maybe my dead body. That's another good thing about having a dog. If something were to happen to me, the dog will notify me. Help. Oh, excuse me. The dog will notify help. And wow, I'm alone. I'm alone. And nobody likes me. Why do you care what people think of you? Just be you. Well, I am being me, and people still don't appreciate me or like me. I'm gonna be 50 years old, and I've never been in a relationship. What the fuck do you think is going on? I used to be a sex god. I was a porn star. What a fucking trophy. That's like an Oscar. And yet nobody liked me or knew me. It was getting so frustrating because they're all having conversations with each other on Twitter, and yet they're not involving me, or every time I got involved, the conversation would stop. And then it came looking for work. They all work for each other. All gay porn stars work for each other. But you have to understand something too. I was doing porn before they were even in porn. So you have to respect seniority. And they didn't even appreciate that. Everywhere I turned, I was being denied the opportunity to film. Nobody wanted to work with me. What was being said about me? In fact, there were people I was starting to hit up that blocked me. Like, why did you block me? I never spoke to you a day in my life. So it became clear to me as day that people were talking about me, and whatever it was negative enough for this person to block me. I was highly offended, but there was nothing I could do. And people were like, why do you want to focus on porn? That porn isn't everything. Porn gave me everything that I wanted. I wish to God that's why to this day we're talking about it. I wish to God that I was Poppy Songo, because Poppy Songo lived the life that I wanted to live. Poppy Songo was famous. Poppy Songo was sexy. Poppy Songo was huge. Poppy Songo made money. Poppy Songo lived this extravagant life. Poppy Songo was everything. And yet, taken away like this. I had my own security guard. I had my own assistant. I had my own cameraman. You need a team to produce your brand or your platform. And I had that. And it was all taken away from me, and I still don't understand why. There was a lady called Mom. She knew I was a porn star because I had no other income coming in. And many people may frown upon being a porn star, but I made enough money for 6 months' rent, or, a year's worth of food. I made enough money to survive. That's why now people are doing OnlyFans, because it's so much money to be invested into. So I don't understand why people would frown upon being in the adult industry. It is a job, plain and simple. So my mom knew that I was in porn, and she allowed me to go to the gym. But I say my mom because now, when my actual mother passed away and she knew that, she allowed me to call her mom. She was actually my boss, and we worked at New York Sports Club, and I would everything I needed, Mom was there. In fact, Mom would change the hours, so I would have a complete set of 40 hours, because at the time the hourly rate, the minimum wage, was $4.25. So she would make all the hours full, so I can actually get a good, decent paycheck. And she bought me things, and I bought her things, and She was my manager for about a good 3 years. But I knew her beyond those 3 years. I knew her a total of 9 years. Yeah, 9 years. So this lady mom became my mom, and she knew everything I was going through, and felt, she needed to be there and was there during that time that we were at work. And they came, they were doing we got a new manager. If you want to talk insane, I was a personal trainer, right? My job was to actively search the club and search for people who need assistance in training, especially when they get their form right, So I was there to actively engage with the members of the gym. We had a manager now come in and say that we had to clean the machines every day, and still do our work as a personal trainer. Like, I disputed that immediately, because how it is that you would think that a personal trainer is trying to sell something personal as far as workout material and giving you a nice plan to work out on, a meal plan too, and here it is, you want me to clean something. We have cleaners, we have people in the locker room doing that. Like, what do you need us to do that for? A couple of us got angry as well, and she eventually fired all of us, and except mom, because mom was a manager, and she fired all of us when we all got fired, and mom allowed us to go to other gyms because she was still there. And eventually she ended up getting fired because of a mental incompetence and having to move into a mental facility. But you see, someone who's crazy and gets away with it. And here I am not crazy, and people think I am crazy. This is what I'm fighting. I'm constantly fighting who the fuck I am. And it's so fucking annoying. Because people don't know me. People don't know me. I don't exist to anybody. I don't. Why do I even bother? I had a purpose before with BillClinton, but he's gone. What is it now? I'm trying my best to focus here because I want this to be our focus. But it's not working because no one is watching. I've had such a hard life. A really hard life. Somebody needs to pay attention. It's really damaged me and continues to damage me. Now people may say, now that I've explained all this, oh, you've been through so much and you're broken, there's no possible way, like someone once told me, you have abandonment issues and I can't be with you, and left. Now I have a problem with that, because you see something is wrong with me, and you see that I'm broken, and you see that something is wrong, and provide no aid, and you leave. So when someone said I have abandonment issues, why would you abandon me? Why? You're doing the exact cause of the problem. I put that in quotes because it really is ridiculous. I hate people who label me. I know myself. I know what's going on, and I'm trying to explain what's going on, and you're not listening, or you don't understand. This has been going on for years. Don't you think that I would know? You haven't been in my shoes. Someone once told me too, you should be in my shoes, and I was very grateful because they had much better shoes than I actually did. The shoes I was wearing I found on the street because I couldn't afford new shoes. That's another good thing about having a dog. I just see, as I keep talking, things are coming out, and that's good. And I want to keep talking, but I can't. I am going to say goodnight. Remember, you're always in the mix with Gay Topics. I'm your host, Kenny Cruz, the only host to bring you the latest gay and lesbian headlines and breaking news. Please stay tuned to the next video. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and socialize. Because the conversation continues. There's always more to the story. Find out on Gay Topics. Bye.